to this week's edition of World Today. We'll focus on how journalists in Pakistan have come under attack, but also major decisions on the vaccine front across the globe. Pakistani journalists have come under serious attack in the recent past for being critical of the government, from intimidation, abduction to assault and even being put off air. All tactics have been employed to muzzle their voices. But even in such tiring circumstances, those who are speaking truth to power and opposing the high-handedness of the administration despite a divided house within the journalistic fraternity in Pakistan are emerging as real heroes. On May 25th, Pakistani journalist Asad Tur was beaten by unidentified men in his apartment at gunpoint. The men claimed to be from the ISI, but the intelligence wing of the Pakistani military has distanced itself from the attack. Some of the journalists who spoke out to support him have also been harassed. Among those is prominent Pakistani journalist Hamid Mir, who was taken off air on May 29th as the host of his popular talk show by Pakistan's Geo News TV because of an anti-army speech. Pakistani journalists have long faced serious obstacles to their work, including harassment, intimidation, assault, arbitrary arrest and detention, abduction, and even death. That's the big story we've been tracking in Pakistan. Huge developments on how the media is rising up and speaking truth to power. I'm being joined by senior journalist Imtiaz Alam, also an activist in many ways than one. Many thanks for joining us here in India today, Imtiaz. I just wanted to know what, according to you, is the reason why we are seeing the kind of attacks against journalists in Pakistan?
Yes, that is very condemnable and despicable. It's happening and continuously happening, and with a lot of impunity. These are 3 or 4 cases of recent past in Islamabad. First, Mr. Afsar Alam was attacked, then before that, Mr. Matiullah Jan was kidnapped, then released, and now Asad Tur, a media blogger, who has been reporting Qazi Isa case, which was a very prominent case in Pakistan judicial history. There was a reference against the judge, and it was being heard by a full bench of the Supreme Court. And he was very fiercely reporting that. So the ISI has denied it through Information Ministry. And Interior Minister says that we have reached close to the 1 person out of 3 who attacked Asad Tur, but so far no arrest has taken place. Rather, some people have gone and filed FIRs against Tur that he is defaming the state institutions. So a treason case may be registered against him. So far, no proceeding has taken place. The Islamabad High Court has also intervened in this matter. But generally, we see that there is a universal censorship in Pakistan. Media is being controlled. Those journalists who have been very independent have been sidelined or taken off the air, like myself, like Nadam Sethi, like Talat Hussain, like now Hamid Mir. So these are very sad days for the press freedom in Pakistan.
Now, journalists like Hamid Mir came out and spoke very strongly against the army. While the ISI has distanced itself from all the incidents that have taken place, we've seen an increase in the way and the manner in which Pakistani journalists have really spoken up and said that thus far and no further. So what's the next step from here?
You see that there is now a proposed ordinance called Pakistan Media Development Authority Ordinance. That is a blanket draconian law which will monitor the media, which will determine the rating of the media, which will determine the circulation of media, which will also form tribunals independent of high courts, which will issue lessons, which will be renewed every year. So we have the Pakistan Federal Union of Journalists and South Asian Free Media Association, SAFMA, a Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, and Pakistan Supreme Court Bar Association and Pakistan Bar Council. We have convened a convention on the issue of freedom of expression. and we will be taking a very firm stand against all encroachments on media freedom, and especially freedom of expression. And we will, in fact, issue a very strong declaration against attacks on the media. So this is not just an issue of one person or one event. It has been happening in Pakistan since this government has come into power. But media has been has fought for long years in Pakistan, for decades, for its freedom,
Right.
and will continue to fight for this.
A very important aspect, Mr. Alam, of discourse within Pakistan that has taken place for many, many years. In between, we saw it spoken of less, but now more so than ever, including political parties now raising voice. And that has to do with whether it is time for Pakistan to move towards absolute democracy, wherein military plays the role like militaries across the world, which is just one wing of governance, not governance itself.
You see that we Democrats in Pakistan have been of consistent position that military has no role in politics, and under our constitution, no institution, whether civil service or whether military service, they do not have any role constitutionally speaking. So in fact, the PDM or the Democratic Movement is also struggling, and Pakistan People's Party and Awami National Party and other democratic forces are fighting for true democracy in Pakistan, in which the institutions of the state follow the writ of the constitution, and they do not become a writ above the constitution. So this has been our stand since our struggle against Ayub Khan, the first military dictator, or against Ziaullah through movement for restoration of democracy, or now through this broader front of democratic parties. So we will continuously be fighting for this, and we will finally be able to. You can say that this is the third consecutive successive government, and this is unprecedented in Pakistan. And if it completes its term and we go to the third elections, to fourth general election, so that will be a good for continuation of democracy in this country.
Right. A very important message there from a journalist, from one of the key members of the journalistic fraternity in Pakistan, saying that the constitution of Pakistan should be supreme, and it is time that the Pakistani administration starts looking at true democracy, not one where one wing rides roughshod over the others. Thank you so much, Mr. Imtiaz Alam, for joining us here on World Today.
Israel is fresh out of a fourth war with Hamas, and stability is what the country needs now. Another election is something that Israel really cannot afford. Facing corruption charges and losing support in parliament, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is almost on his way out. The two main opposition leaders, Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett, have come together to form a coalition along with smaller parties and one representation from the Palestinians as well to form government. Here's
For the whole of 2nd June, two of Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's once trusted comrades were locked in a room to find his alternative. And shortly before the midnight deadline, Yair Lapid and his main coalition partner, Naftali Bennett, came out shaking hands. They have, for the time being, prevented the country from plunging into what would have been its fifth consecutive election in just over 2 years. Next day, Israel's Prime Minister for 12 years, Benjamin Netanyahu, broke his silence for the first time on social media. Writing on Twitter, he urged right-wing Knesset members to oppose this dangerous left-wing government. He also said Bennett had sold Negev to Ram, referring to the Islamist party.
It's a very unbelievable coalition between a very right-wing party and very left-wing party, and a little bit in the center. We never had a government like this. We never had a coalition like this. It's a great hope that there will be a change, because the political atmosphere, because of the head, because of the prime minister that was quite corrupted person, he and his family. So we like to have a new spirit. We like to have some unity, and this government, I think, represent unity.
עוד שבוע וחצי תראו שיהיה פיזור הכנסת ויהיה להם סכסוך, ורבותיי, אני אומר לכם, תזכרו את המילה שלי, עוד שבוע וחצי אין ממשלה.
Analysts too believe the road ahead could be a challenging one.
Bennett will serve as the Prime Minister for the first 2 years, and then he will be automatically replaced by Yair Lapid for the rest of the Knesset term. Now, it is a very complicated task to form this government, mainly because of its heterogeneity, the tremendous ideological distance between the parties, for example, Yemina on the right and Meretz on the left. But I think that each potential political partner has a clear interest to form this new government. Parties like Meretz and Yesh Atid and Blue and White Israel Beitenu and Labour, their main goal in the recent years is to replace Netanyahu.
This arrangement, for the time being, would end the record-setting tenure of Netanyahu, the most dominant figure in Israeli politics over the past 3 decades.
Israeli commercial flight to UAE.
But in order to form a government, a party leader must secure the support of a 61-seat majority in Israeli parliament. Because no single party controls a majority on its own, coalitions are usually built with smaller partners. Israel now rests its hope on the newly elected President Isaac Herzog, a veteran politician and the scion of a prominent Israeli family. Though the president is a largely ceremonial role that is meant to serve as the nation's moral compass and promote unity, Herzog is expected to keep this fragile union of multiple parties with varying ideologies together, because Israel needs stability to deal with the aftermath of the war and the economic stagnancy due to pandemic.
After Alexei Navalny, Russia has now started a fresh crackdown against opposition leaders. Prominent opposition leaders like Andrei Pivovarov and Dmitry Gudkov were detained, their homes and offices raided, even their associates not spared. While Gudkov was detained for a couple of days and released, Pivovarov has been sent to jail for 2 months pending probe. It seems like this is a message by Kremlin for the protesters and for the opposition leaders ahead of the elections that are due in September.
Russia has started to widen the net of crackdown on political opposition. On the 1st of June, Russian authorities arrested 1 opposition activist and raided the homes of several others. Andrei Pivovarov, the head of the Open Russia movement, was pulled off a plane in St. Petersburg airport on the 31st of May. Pivovarov was taken to his St. Petersburg apartment by police after being pulled off the plane. Police then conducted searches of his home. He was then taken to Krasnodar in southern Russia as part of a criminal probe against him. Police also raided the country home of opposition political candidate Dmitry Gudkov, who aspires to run for parliament in September. Homes of his 2 associates were also searched.
Ничего на данный момент не вменяют. Соответственно, был произведен обыск по 165 статье 2. Это причинение имущественного ущерба. Соответственно, мы сами не понимаем на данный момент, какое отношение мы имеем к данным обстоятельствам. Сейчас, соответственно, везут в Главное следственное управление МВД в Москве. Соответственно, будем выяснять.
Уважаемые коллеги, добрый день.
Russian President Vladimir Putin praised his government's crackdown on the opposition.
Приветствовать. Понятно, что вопросов много. Я уверен, что у людей и претензий много к ведущей политической силе. Но в целом работа была проделана очень большая.
On the same day in Krasnodar, the court ordered Andrei Pivovarov, the head of the Open Russia movement, to jail pending a probe. Open Russia was dissolved last week. Pivovarov announced that Open Russia was shutting down to protect its members from prosecution after authorities had designated it as undesirable. Russian authorities designated it as undesirable organization along with more than 30 others, using a 2015 law that made membership in such organizations a criminal offense.
Welcome back to World Today. Major developments on the COVID vaccine front. The United States of America, after requests from various countries and various quarters, has finally removed Defense Production Act for 3 important vaccine candidates: AstraZeneca, Novavax and Sanofi. It is important because many countries now will be able to manufacture these vaccines by getting ingredients from US companies. Meanwhile, the WHO has also cleared and approved Chinese vaccine candidate Sinovac and given it authorization for emergency use. This is a shot in the arm for all those fighting for inoculation.
Today, we're outlining our framework for sharing with the world the first 25 million doses. To be clear, our approach is to ensure vaccines are delivered in a way that is equitable and follows the latest science and public health data. Across the coming weeks, the administration will move as expeditiously as possible and work through regulatory requirements and logistical details to ensure safe and secure delivery of doses.
First, the US was hesitant to share vaccines globally, and then as the second wave hit India monstrously, they sent helping aid. In June, finally, the Joe Biden administration unveiled the allocation for sharing the first 25 million doses with the world. The US plans to allocate 75% of unused COVID-19 vaccines through the UN-backed COVAX Global Vaccine Sharing Program in the coming days. A day before the White House announcement, Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga announced that his country will inject another $800 million into the COVAX program to deploy COVID-19 vaccines to poor countries around the world. It's a 4-fold increase and will bring Japan's total commitment to $1 billion in COVAX.
This is an unprecedented and largest ever contribution to the COVAX facility from Japan, which accounts for a large part of the remaining funding gap. Additionally, considering the harsh reality of the spread of new variants and lagging vaccine supply, I am pleased to announce that when circumstances allow, and at an appropriate time, Japan intends to provide around 30 million doses of vaccines manufactured in Japan, including through the COVAX facility, to other countries and regions.
A flight carrying 1.24 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine from Japan reached Taiwan on the 4th of June. Taiwan, a self-governing island, has struggled to get its own vaccines. It blamed China for interfering in a deal. After a slow start, in a span of just 5 days in May, China gave out 100 million shots of its COVID-19 vaccines on the mainland. It started its massive vaccination program in December 2020 and hopes to vaccinate 70% to 80% of its population between the end of this year and the middle of the next. On the other hand, Chinese vaccine made by Sinovac got emergency use authorization by the WHO in adults aged 18 and over on the 1st of June. It's the second vaccine candidate from China to get WHO clearance. Last month, the world body gave the green light to COVID-19 vaccine made by Sinopharm.
And today, I'm happy to announce that the Sinovac CoronaVac vaccine has been given WHO emergency use listing after being found to be safe, effective, and quality assured following 2 doses of the inactivated vaccine. Furthermore, the easy storage requirements of CoronaVac make it very suitable for low-resource settings. It's now the 8th vaccine to receive EUL by WHO.
The The WHO has also licensed vaccines developed by Pfizer, BioNTech, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna and AstraZeneca for global inoculation. The World Health Organization now wants to adopt new resolutions by member states that aim to improve preparedness for massive viral outbreaks like COVID-19. It has stepped up calls for the passage of an international pandemic treaty.
Time for World at a Glance, where we take you through all those stories that we could not discuss.
3 people were killed and at least 16 were injured in an explosion on 4th June at a crowded restaurant in northwestern Baghdad city. Iraqi military statement said a gas cylinder exploded at the restaurant situated close to the shrine of Imam Musa al-Qadim. It's revered by Shiite Muslims. A member of the committee that organizes Hong Kong's annual candlelight vigil for the victims of the Tiananmen Square crackdown was arrested on 4th June. It is the 32nd anniversary of the 1989 massacre of students at Tiananmen Square in Beijing. The vigil was cancelled by Hong Kong for the 2nd year in a row. The committee also ran a museum dedicated to 1989 military crackdown. The museum was ordered to close this week. Pope Francis has changed church law to explicitly criminalize the sexual abuse of adults by priests. The new provisions released on 1st June include not only priests but also lay people who hold church office and can now be sanctioned for similar sex crimes. After 14 years of study, these laws have been contained in the revised criminal law section of the Vatican's Code of Canon Law. This in-house legal system covers the 1.3 billion strong Catholic Church.
That's all from me in this edition of World Today. We'll see you next week with some more stories and major international developments. Goodbye and take care.